So, what does it really take to make sure a student with epilepsy doesn't just stay safe at school, but actually thrives? Well, today we're going to break down a really powerful framework that answers that exact question. We're moving way beyond just basic accommodations to unlock every single child's potential. So, why is this so critical to talk about? Honestly, because epilepsy isn't some rare condition. It's the number one most common neurological disorder in children. That means having students with epilepsy in our schools isn't just a possibility, it's a certainty. But here's the thing. The seizures themselves, they're really just the tip of the iceberg. The real challenge, the part that truly shapes a student's life, is everything happening below the surface. The stuff that affects their learning, their friendships, and their well-being in ways we just don't see. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look beyond the seizure to get the full picture. Then I'll introduce you to a powerful three-pillar framework. We'll dive into each of those pillars, and finally, we'll see how to turn all these great ideas into real-world action. So, let's start with that hidden part of the iceberg. Because to really, truly support a student, we have to push past the stereotypes and understand the full, complete impact of this condition. On paper, epilepsy is a neurological disorder that's all about recurrent seizures. But these seizures aren't always what you see in the movies. Sure, they can be convulsive, but they can also be something as quiet as a brief lapse in consciousness, where a student might just look like they're daydreaming for a second. And this is the distinction we have to get. We tend to focus on the visible stuff, the seizures. But the real battle for these kids, it's the invisible challenges, the memory gaps, that crushing fatigue after a seizure, the days missed from school, and the social stigma. Those are the things that create the biggest hurdles to their success. So, how do we tackle both the visible and the invisible? Well, the answer is in a structured, holistic framework that looks at the whole picture. The solution boils down to a framework built on three pillars that are totally interconnected. They support the whole child, their academic success, their physical safety, and their social and emotional well-being. And here's the key. If one of these pillars starts to crumble, the whole structure is at risk. Let's dive into Pillar 1, Unlocking Academic Potential. Now, this requires a pretty fundamental shift in how we think about teaching in the classroom. It all starts with this philosophical shift. Instead of laser focusing on a student's limitations or what they can't do, we need to leverage their strengths. This is all about building on what they can do, not just trying to patch up what they struggle with. And this idea just comes to life perfectly with the story of a boy named Ion. So he really struggled with math problems, right? But he was an incredible storyteller. So what did his teachers do? They had him create stories and narratives based on the math problems. And suddenly, it all started to click because the information was presented in a way that just worked for his brain. See, this asset-based approach leads to really practical, smart strategies. Things like chunking lessons into smaller pieces for students whose energy levels go up and down. Or using assistive tech for personalized learning. Or even offering project-based assessments instead of a single high-stress exam. And the cool part is, these aren't just accommodations for one kid. There's smarter teaching methods that can help everyone in the room. Okay, now for Pillar 2. And this one is a biggie. None of that awesome academic work can happen if a student doesn't feel safe, physically and emotionally. Safety is the absolute non-negotiable foundation for any learning to happen. This is something every single adult in a school building needs to know by heart. It's called Stay Safe Side. You stay with person and time the event. You keep them safe by clearing away any nearby objects. And you turn them gently on their side to keep their airway clear. It's simple, it's clear, and it is absolutely life-saving. And here is the single most important number to remember. 5. 5 minutes. If a seizure lasts for 5 minutes or longer, that is a medical emergency. You call for immediate medical help, no question. But safety is so much more than just emergency response. A proactive school looks for and reduces common seizure triggers, like stress and fatigue. It makes sure the campus is accessible, and it provides a quiet, supervised space where a student can go to recover after a seizure. All right, let's move to our third and final pillar, which, to be honest, is often the most overlooked: nurturing a student's social and emotional health. I mean, just look at this number. It's staggering. Over 40% of students with epilepsy say they've been stigmatized or bullied. This isn't just a social problem, The emotional stress from that can directly impact their physical health. It can even increase how often seizures happen. So how do we fix this? Again, it's through proactive strategies. Things like peer education programs that demystify epilepsy and build real empathy. A peer buddy system is a great idea to make sure no one feels left out. And we can even teach all students simple mindfulness techniques to help manage stress.
So, we have our 3 pillars, but how do we actually make them a reality? Well, it all comes down to turning these ideas into school-wide policy and practice.
And this chart says it all, right? This is the huge difference between a reactive school and a proactive one. A reactive school just deals with crises as they pop up. A proactive school has a plan, it trains all its staff, it actively fights stigma, and it builds a real partnership with the family. It's not just about managing a condition, it's a complete culture shift. And what powers that culture shift? 2 things that are totally non-negotiable. First, comprehensive training for every single adult in that building, from the principal all the way to the bus driver. And second, a real, authentic partnership with the family, one that's built on trust and open communication. When you put all of this together, the mission becomes crystal clear. The goal is to make absolutely sure that a medical diagnosis does not get to write the final chapter of a child's educational story. And this really leaves us with a final, critical question to think about. Is a diagnosis a definition? Is it just a label that we apply to a child? Or is it a catalyst? A reason to build a more thoughtful, more supportive, and ultimately a better school for every child who walks through its doors?